Just so you know, this was really hard and scary for me to do. So please, have mercy, because I don't know what I'm doing. Roll the intro. Hi. Okay, enough. I'll be serious now. Hello, everyone. Greetings, the Aristobats, fellow immortals and mortals yet to be claimed by the night. Welcome to this latest humble abode. Last time I did a writing video, I mentioned that I wished for it to become a series. However, I wasn't sure what I was going to do with it. And truth be told, I still don't really know. But since part of my plan was for me to eventually start talking about my writing a bit more, and because I've been constantly preaching on my channel that you should definitely go after your dreams and goals in life, no matter how hard they are, I thought it was high time that I stood by my word and followed my own advice. It is common in writing communities to hear it's important to promote your book before it gets released, talk about it as much as you can, regardless of release date. So here's me trying to talk about it. Truth be told, it's not my first time talking about it online, just my first time in video form, which makes it a bit more difficult and embarrassing. But I'll make it. I'll survive, because I've been making videos for a year now, so I should be able to do this as well. And you should too. If you're a writer, if you're an artist of any sort, show your work to the world. Now then, let's get into it. My book series is called Demons of the Rose. It is a 13-year-old passion project of mine that is yet to see the light of day, and it goes a little bit like this. Once upon a time, millions of years ago, when light and darkness were still conquerors of this world, an inhuman nation was born. New blood poured out of hell's burning heart, with great power and immeasurable charm. Created to match the army of God, they were designed to be obedient, smart, and almost exactly as skillful as the winged knights of the sun. Giving them too much brain, though, eventually worked against the plan when they realized the number of options at hand. The battle was still heated when many protested in both fields. Exhausted by wars and fights and intrigued by notions projected by the enemy, some dared to face their lords and negotiate for peace. Consequences, though, appeared in both fields. The Infernal Lord wasn't pleased with weapons thinking they'd a say in any of this, nor dragging other demons along in the newly found beliefs. And so he raged and cursed and punished, a lesson never forgotten by the masses. As for angels, they were thanked. Dedication to the eternal lesson, they said, were promoted to the greatest responsibility of them all, to protect God's most vulnerable creation, humans, from the evil world. But new duty had angels forced away from earth, following the Father back to the sky, which to them wasn't pleasant, and maybe one day you'll know why. Several years went by, each one missing no day without a scream, and the cursed ones returned to life, no choice left but to coexist. Reborn thirsty for revenge, some sought the immortals of the sun, and others the devil's latest clan. Nobles of the highest class with powers never known came against each other, launching a new war. Compromise was deemed essential. Good and devil had to agree. Decisions were made to bury those demons again deep underneath. They too joined forces, though, and hid well, spreading their seeds here and there. They put themselves in cold sleep, and swore next time they'll be the ones to lead. And that's how our story begins. Spooky. So let's talk about the plot a little. The story revolves around an army of demons who were created after the fall of Lucifer during the ongoing battle between angels and demons. The world as we know it hadn't been created yet, humans didn't exist yet. So as you can tell, the battlefield wasn't the most sensical thing. So this army I'm talking about was created to be perfect, right? And by perfect, I mean in everything. Battle, appearance, behavior. But perfect lies in the eyes of the beholder, so let's say perfect by the devil's standards. That of course included intelligence. And as intelligent beings, it didn't take long before they started feeling their life was far from ideal. They didn't wish to live as weapons and attempted to escape. But the result was mentioned in the intro, so I'll refrain from repeating myself. Now the main story of this series starts years after that, when those guys have adjusted well enough into human society. Throughout the series, we practically explore how life has been for them all these years, and how things are currently in the present, that is 2003. As a millennial, I had to write something around the years that I personally enjoyed the most in my life. And if you notice the intense blinking while I explain everything, well, say goodbye to it, because now I press the button that stops the blinking. Small parentheses, but essentially the program I use to move my model works with the numbers on the keyboard. And the default state, while it allows blinking, it also keeps my mouth slightly open when I don't speak. And as a perfectionist, I don't like this. So it was either having a mouth that never closes or not blinking. And I chose not to blink, so yeah, sorry. So yeah, that's it. That's the summary of my work. It is a dark fantasy WIP series with elements from many other genres, so I generally don't know in which genre I will eventually put it in. I guess dark fantasy is the best because it has elements from psychological horror, gore, many types of horror really. It's got music, it's got drama, comedy, lots and lots of genres really. As far as themes and tropes are concerned, there's plenty in there as well, including found family themes, music like I said, power and corruption, the power of friendship, yes I do have that. If you liked fairy tale, you probably like this one too. The pursuit of freedom, and many more. But I'm having a hard time describing things like that, so let's get into a more fun way to do it, shall we? It has caught my eye that there are both writers and readers that do not enjoy when a writer explains their work through their inspiration. But personally, I think that's where everything starts. It was because I was a huge fan of those things that I ended up writing my own. So let's talk a little bit about the inspiration behind my work. That way you can understand the themes better and essentially where all the stories coming from. Hit it! Music. Demons of the Rose was mainly inspired by the Japanese subculture of visual kei, the bands, their music, the visuals, which is characterized by freedom of expression. In my work, I wished to encompass the many ways a person can express themselves, be themselves, and making characters that have significantly different styles and tastes from each other, as well as behaviors, of course. Being free to be who you are has been a heavy theme throughout my life, so I wish to create a world where such different individuals coexist peacefully and respect each other's space. Of course, that is not an easy process, so tension among my characters is frequent. Those of you who enjoy a little drama in your fiction will probably enjoy this. I don't have my table here with me today, but oh well. Music and music videos in general played a big role in my work. They always did and they'll always have. I basically grew up creating based on the music I was listening to, and this series is no different. But let's go back to the character part and how I create, both to give you an example of what you can expect from my work, as well as an example as to how I go about making characters. Exhibit A. This is a screenshot from a music video of one of my favorite bands that has unfortunately disbanded, and Eccentric Agent, for the song Blaze. You can look it up if you want. If you're into metal or hard rock or whatnot, you might enjoy it. But yeah, this is the look the band went with. It was all about crazy doctors, mad scientist vibe, but for doctors and surgeons and whatnot. So based on that and a few other music videos of the same kind, as it is a rather popular subject for music videos in this scene, I wish to make something that involved this kind of theme. I wanted experiments to be done. I wanted my characters to be made as experiments. And this is essentially how I ended up choosing to make my demons made up from hell and creating a whole section in my hell that is all about designing, creating demons, and then throwing them out in hell to do whatever. But it wasn't only that. Being a big horror fan, of course, I had come across this trope way before that, and I knew I enjoyed it. So this triggered my excitement about this trope again, and how I wish for my demons to actually have this kind of aesthetic, or worse than that. Another example. This is a screenshot from a music video of a band called Versailles that I also love very much, for the song Ascended Master. Their aesthetic was a big one for me, like the feeling it gave me, and being introduced to more than that, like the Lolita fashion, the OG fashion and all. I wanted several of my characters to have a kind of aesthetic, and this was so smart to use when it came to demons like that, because demons in general as an entity in fiction, they've lived a long time, right? So it's amazing how you can play with this type of style and say that, oh, they just refuse to follow the times and they just wish to keep dressing up like they did in their time. Like vampires that stay very much like this, very Renaissance, very Rococo, very Baroque looking. But what I went with is that, they've lived a long time, all right? From the beginning of time. So before humans were born. So I wanted them to have experienced times before that, and when they reached that era, to love that style so much that they kept it up until now. Of course, they don't go outside like this because people are going to notice them more and they don't like that. But many of my characters dress like that inside their house and used to cause havoc in noble parties back in those times. One more example. This screenshot is from the music video of, yet again, another favorite band of mine called Kiryu. They're more folk metal. And when I say folk, I mean Japanese folk. I mean, you can tell. Their music videos introduced me to Japanese mythology and all about yurei and yokai. So, because I wish to have characters that did come from Japan, I thought that this was just excellent. So yeah, I studied a lot of biblical stuff to write my work. I studied a lot of mythology, and I hope I did justice to these things because they're really amazing. I get to hear a lot about people enjoying Greek mythology, and honestly, sure, there are some things that I find interesting too, but I don't know, maybe it's because I've been fed this type of mythology for years, like growing up. I don't find it as exciting as other people. In fact, I find Japanese mythology more fun than the Greek one, and sometimes even Chinese mythology, actually. But yeah, these were a few examples of how I go about my work and how music videos, music, and bands helped me with my character creation. But let's move on to the next part of my inspiration. Video games. Another big inspiration for me and this particular work, although I have done this in the past as well with works that I eventually gave up, is video games. I have been a gamer ever since I was a little girl. I wasn't playing, of course, stuff that I play today. I was playing more kiddie stuff. But yeah, they've been a big part of my life growing up. The strongest, I'd say, inspiration out of everything that was infused into my work was definitely Silent Hill. I wanted so much to create a world like that. Like, if you get to experience the way I designed Hell, there are a lot of parts that are heavily Silent Hill inspired. I have separated Hell into territories, all right? And the closest to Silent Hill aesthetic I could get came with Sloths and Envy's territory, because the 7 deadly sins have a different territory in Hell. And yeah, my Sloth territory has lots of fog, and Envy has lots of rust, abandoned places, and dangerous streets that look empty but eventually get filled with monsters once you cross them. For many different reasons, including, wanting to feed and all, but essentially envy. Like, if you walk the streets of my Envy's territory and you wear something valuable, even if it's not valuable though, like, you could have just the simplest of clothes on and somebody would attack you. Because exactly this is it. This is the place where everybody is envious of everything you own. So the moment you step in, everything about you will be envied. Everything about you will want to be claimed. So yeah, it reaches a point that even if you have pretty hair, you can be attacked and have your hair taken off. Like scalped, not just cut off. But yeah, scenes like this and this, like I was obsessed growing up. I could never take it out of my mind. And I wanted also music like that to exist somehow. Like if I could make music like this, it would be all over my hell. Like if I could record an album with music like this by Akira Yamaoka, I would have definitely done it. And the monsters as well. I wanted some of my monsters, if not all of them, to have an actual meaning, like why they're designed like this. I wanted them to mean something. Of course, I wouldn't go the way that Silent Hill went, that, you know, the monsters were based off the feelings of the main character or the main antagonist, because I guess Alessa is the antagonist in the first one. But yeah, I wanted something like this, for example. I'm sorry for the change in colors. I didn't want to get demonetized because YouTube is a bit sensitive with the blood. But yeah, this was really, really important for me growing up as a game, and I wish to be able to write something like this one day. And well, I didn't write much horror as a child, so I gave it my all now. Next up is Final Fantasy, and especially Final Fantasy X2. I experienced Final Fantasy X only a little. I have yet to play it whole, but I know what's going on because I was spoiled all the way while looking for the story before Yuna, that is my favorite character. The world of this game is crazy. I wanted to create something like that, but my fantasy when it comes to worlds is kind of limited. I am more resourceful, if you will, with characters and scenarios, not so much with world. Or fashion even. See, games like this were my first experience of living in another world, because unlike movies, you get to be characters, you get to be part of this, you're not just watching, you get to be inside the game, walk around, explore. You don't get that with movies, so yeah, that was also a big inspiration for me, but not as much in the world because I couldn't fit this type of aesthetic into my world, but there are some parts that I think that big Final Fantasy fans would be able to point and say, oh, Lady actually wrote that based on Final Fantasy. Other video games that really helped with my world were Devil May Cry and Clock Tower 3. I really enjoy the monsters in Devil May Cry. I don't remember which Devil May Cry though. Like I could remember the characters and look for them, and then I forgot which game they were in. But I loved this character, which by the time I edit this video, I will have already rechecked from which game it is and remember. I should have made my research before the video, but it's been tough this week. It's been tough. So yeah, I wanted some sort of clown demon, and I have a whole species out of characters like this. Not necessarily wooden ones like in Devil May Cry. They're characters, they're human looking. But I wanted something like this because I like the idea of a clown as an enemy. And it was also one of my phobias growing up. Like when you were going downtown in Heraklion, there were many times there at the late 90s, early zeros, okay, that you would come across both clowns and mimes down the street. And I hated them. I hated them, guys. They were terrifying to me, and they were so kind, actually. Like, looking back now, I feel a little bad about this, but they would approach you because you were a child, and they would do all kinds of tricks for you, and you didn't have to pay them, obviously. Like, you could leave a coin or something, but you didn't have to, and they would do all kinds of tricks in front of you to impress you. But I was terrified of them, so I was always like, Mama, take me away from them. So yeah, this was by far based on my clown phobia back then. Now I'm not afraid of them anymore. But yeah, that is also a big thing in my work. We'll talk about this later, fears. But yeah, and then we have Clock Tower. Clock Tower 3 had a great atmosphere. So I was greatly inspired by the atmosphere of that. And I wanted to give that feeling more inside the mansions of my demons, like that eeriness. But the thing is, I'm still struggling, because I'm currently editing. I'm struggling with giving that feeling through writing, all right? Because the mansion is not supposed to be scary for the residents. It's supposed to be like that for others going inside. And the only time that others come inside my mansions is after the mansion has been burned down. So I don't know if I've done a good job with creating that atmosphere, but it gave me such an impressive feeling as a child that I really wanted to translate this into my work. Moving on. Movies. Well, several movies played an important role in the creation of my WIP series. There were two specific ones that basically initiated the whole thing, and those are Bara no Konrei and Verte Aile. If I pronounce this correctly, to this day I'm not 100% sure. These two are actually short films created by the band Malice Miser, and Bara no Konrei specifically is a remake of the famous movie Bram Stoker's Dracula. I was so surprised when I eventually watched Bram Stoker's Dracula because I hadn't watched it before seeing Bara no Konrei. I knew its existence, but I hadn't watched it. So yeah, when I did get to watch that film, I was so surprised how many scenes were actually the same, just shot differently and with different elements and whatnot. And oddly enough, I prefer this short to the original, and I don't care what anybody says. I'm not aware if Verte Aile is the same or if it was an original script, but yeah, both of them had such a crazy atmosphere, it just blew my mind away. I really needed to create something like that. Another strong inspiration for my WIP has been the series of Supernatural. I'd say the series came into my life at a really good time. I was just leaving elementary school for junior high, right? And getting curious about other topics. And it was a time that I actually grew very fond of darker stuff. Like, sure, I was watching horror video games from a young age. I knew I liked horror, but there are some things that I couldn't watch. For example, my parents didn't allow me watch horror films as a kid. They allowed me play horror games, but not watch horror films. Like, even in some action films, they would close my eyes so that I didn't see the blood or whatnot, but it honestly didn't affect me as much as they thought. But yeah, around the time I got into vampires, as most teenagers would, I got into demons, I got into occult stuff. So Supernatural coming to my life at that age was just right. So yeah, I think this one shows a lot in my work. Like, I'm sure that people who have watched Supernatural, in case they ever touch my WIP, they would certainly find the references inside. And there are specific episodes that shine the most in my work, like for example the time loop episode. The Gabriel traps Dean and Sam in a time loop, and Sam keeps waking up the same day and seeing Dean die in various ways. I love that episode, and I think that it was because it was my first time experiencing the trope of a time loop. I wasn't familiar with it before. Other examples feature stuff that have to do with angels and demons. I loved the way they portrayed those things, hence why they show in my work so much. There are many more episodes like that, but the time loop specifically is showing a lot in my WIP. Small parenthesis. If you hear any drilling in the background, I apologize, but I don't have the luxury of time to record when the neighbors decide to stop working on their house, so sorry for the noise in the back. I swear I don't know what's up with this neighborhood. Every few weeks somebody's fixing something and we all can hear it. It's either all morning or all afternoon, and they don't stop. Sometimes they don't stop even during the noon. You know, like hours that people should be sleeping or something, or resting. I don't know what's that called in English. Anyway, moving on. Next up is Addams Family. I told you one of the tropes in my WIP is found family, and I wanted this type in particular. I will say this, I did try to go with the opposite characterizations as well, like, you know, when Morticia is lying on the bed and Gomez is asking her, "Unhappy, darling?" and she's like, "Oh yes, yes, very," something like that. I wanted to go like that, like use generally bad adjectives that would mean nice for them, but I struggle so much to do that, so I eventually just went with happy means happy, unhappy means unhappy, and they're not fond of the unhappy state, they're fond of the happy state. But I did try because I found it very interesting when I rewatched it as an adult. But yeah, in general, I wanted this type of crazy dynamic with my own characters. When there's so much love among each other, there's also games with knives and guillotines and stuff like that that would be considered dangerous, but to them, they're just fun. But yeah, this whole atmosphere, this dark atmosphere, and accepting each other for being weird and celebrating being weird. You know? Next on the list of inspirations is an unlikely, I'd say, example. Probably not many people would expect me be inspired by this one, but it is Charlie's Angels, the 2000s version. So yeah, what I wanted to take from this film is, because it's my childhood favorite movie, okay? I wanted this feeling of being, you know, a spy going to missions and whatnot, but still having fun. still doing it fashionably and still having fun. Because fashion is a big thing in my WIP, I wanted this to be implemented as well. I wanted them to do whatever they had to do while remaining very fashionable, and like Charlie's Angels, just going crazy with it. Next up, the libertine. As a person who hasn't experienced lots of human corruption in her life the way that would be seen in films, I tend to be unable to portray it as well as I would like to. Like, I can read all kinds of articles from that time, like people who research that stuff, and how during Renaissance, during Baroque times, during Victorian times, the nobles did all kinds of heinous parties, all right? I wanted to be able to write that in a way that shows you the filth, the corruption, the sexuality of it all. And this movie does portray that very well, like somebody who doesn't care about anything but himself. We get to see nobles at the worst. We get to see the result that had for many, because if you've watched it, if not, you should. If you like historical movies, you absolutely should. And if you're not offended easily, because it's very much offensive sometimes. But yeah, I think the depiction of that specific trope in that film is very strong. So I wanted to be able to show that myself. Whenever I brought up older times before 2003, obviously, that my characters would go to parties like that and crush them and do awful things and punish those they thought that didn't deserve what they have, because some of my characters are quite self-righteous, even though they're demons, and they tend to punish those that are being a little too much. I'm having a trouble describing this, but I hope you understand what I mean. There are certain limits that my characters refuse to cross. Next up, The Devil's Rejects. This one is like a more unhinged version of Addams Family for me, and that is because we're talking about three criminals, three really bad criminals that, however, have such a strong sense of family. It's crazy. Like, especially that one scene that they're on the track and Baby, I think Baby it's her name in this one, Sherry Moon Zombie's name, I think it's Baby. Anyway, she asks for ice cream. Was it her? Anyway, one of the three characters wanted ice cream, and Baby, Sherry Moon's character, was repeatedly saying, I want ice cream, I want some tutti frutti, something like that. And they're arguing like a normal family about going to get ice cream, even though they're so heinous, so evil. And I don't know, I just love the dynamic, and I think that that rawness is what I wanted. I wanted a family that loves each other the way the Addams family do and accept each other for who they are, as well as keeping the raw part of them like The Devil's Rejects do. If I'm not being specific, I apologize. I haven't watched these films for ages. Some I have rewatched, but most of these I had watched at least 10 years ago. And they still impacted me so much. And of course, they impacted my work because, like I said, I've been writing this series for 13 years. Next movie on my list is Wild Wild West. Don't ask me say that fast because I will trip on my tongue. Listen, I don't care what Will Smith says about this film. I love it. It's probably my favorite movie of his, and I don't care what he thinks. I'm sorry. So yeah, I needed steampunk in my work as well. I have steampunk existing in it, even though it's not a real thing, but not necessarily in machines. It's more like seen in fashion than anything. My characters have traveled the world, so obviously they've been to the West as well. Two of my characters are cowboy coded. So yeah, I wanted this type of Wild West fantasy that only Wild Wild West gave me growing up. Now, obviously, if I wanted some stronger inspiration out of Wild Wild West and how things were, I could use Django, but I don't know. I wanted a more fantasy take on it, and I was greatly inspired by that when doing the Wild West part. Next up is Saw, the Saw series. Okay, from this one, what I took was mostly the traps, because I kind of lack an imagination when it comes to torture machines, you know? I needed something that would give me the cruelest form of torture I could find, so what's better than Saw? I mean, I had heard about Hostel growing up, but I watched one of these as an adult, and honestly, I don't see the hype. Maybe I watched the wrong Hostel, I don't know, like, I watched the first one and I wasn't impressed, but I remember that when I was a kid, the two movies that everybody would bring up that were the craziest when it came to that stuff were Hostel and Saw. But I still prefer Saw as a series. I think it's smarter in a way. And yeah, this is all it is. This is the part of hell that I wanted to describe, that has all these kinds of tortures for people that get condemned there. And of course the tortures that my characters took while being trained
to be able to defeat angels and God. Next up, another one that perhaps people wouldn't expect of me to use is Chicago. Like I said, my work has a lot of music involved, so I couldn't possibly mention older times and not mention the time, the 20s, the roaring 20s, around Chicago, around cabarets, around this stuff. Like, I love this stuff. They had to be inside. And Chicago was one of my most favorite musicals growing up, so it had to be in it. This is all about performance, of course, more than the story. But yeah, this atmosphere had to be in it. And you could imagine, I guess, that I would go for Moulin Rouge as well, but actually I didn't. Because Moulin Rouge represents a specific type of aesthetic that didn't quite fit my WIP. There is a scene, one small scene that is inspired by Moulin Rouge, but it's like that, like one scene, a few seconds is time of screen time. If you could put screen time that way, like for a book. Next up is The Mask of Zorro. This was used mostly for Mexican inspiration because there are a couple of moments taking place in Mexico that had to do with nobles, alright? And that was the only movie that I was exposed to that deals with that. I'm still looking for others as well, though. If you have any recommendations, please put it in the comments. I wanted to have a visual idea of what that felt like besides reading about it, because obviously I did research those things. I don't write my stuff based only on movies because movies aren't being realistic necessarily. But it's good for me to have a visual as well because it pumps me up to write about this more than reading about it. And lastly, because I have characters that are pirates, Pirates of the Caribbean have also been a big inspiration for me. More so for the characters than for the whole idea of what was going on in the Caribbean islands during the golden age of piracy. But yeah, some of the things that inspired the atmosphere around that time as well did take place, but mostly I wanted to be able to make my characters sound and act like pirates. And let me tell you, when you look up how to write a pirate online, not it. It's not it, I'm telling you. Like, if I had to read one more time that you shouldn't be using the classic lingo that everybody came up with, the R and stuff like that, but that you have to still keep it slang, and depending where the pirate was from, have a different slang, like, I cannot write that. I'm sorry, that is too much work. Finding the slang of 3 different languages and applying them? Not me. So yeah, I tried to keep it English and I tried to keep it decent so that it doesn't sound that made up. Like, none of my pirate characters goes R or stuff like that. But they do use some lingo from the seas, like hoist the colors, and when you call somebody a coward, you call him lily livered, something like that. Yeah, I tried to put those in. Last but not least, worldview, fears, and psychology. One of the frequent things you hear in writing communities and writers telling to each other is that when there's something you don't see written, you've got to write it yourself. Because, you know, as a reader, there'll be times that you want to see a specific thing going on during the trope, but you don't necessarily find it easily, and when you do, maybe it's not written the way you would like. That's when you take the situation in your hands and sit down with pen and paper or with a PC and start writing the story you wish to hear. For me, this was taken from a young age, like whenever I wanted to read something, because, you know, I was a little kid, I didn't know where to search for those things. So yeah, I would sit down and write fan fiction for everything that I wanted to go down in video games I played or movies I watched. Yeah. I also didn't enjoy very much when movies would finish. I wanted for more things to happen. Like, why would a movie have to finish? It was so good. So I would keep writing what would happen after the end of said movie or after the end of the game. I always took it up to me to continue what I wanted to see or what I didn't see during something, because, you know, there were some games that had no romance. A little lady wanted some romance, so she wrote it down because she didn't care what anybody thought. So yeah, when I grew up and saw this take, I said, oh, well, look at that, I've been doing this all my life. So yeah, in a way, my WIP was my attempt to create everything I wanted to read, because I am such a picky reader you can't imagine. And this is also one of the reasons that I was faced with guilt for the first time. I didn't know that was a thing. But when I got into writing communities, there was this rule, I guess, that you have to read a lot in order to become a good writer. And if you don't read enough, you're not a good writer. Now, I never said that I wanted to be a good writer, to be fair. I just wanted to tell stories. Like all my life, all I wanted to do when I put my pen down on my paper was to tell a story that I didn't see in the stuff that I consumed, or something that just randomly came to my head. I didn't care about good. I just wanted to tell stories. So when I saw that, I instinctively felt so bad because, growing up, I used to read a lot, just not books. I would read comics. I would read fairy tales. But I was never big on books, and we had lots of books in my house. Like, my mother used to read a lot when she was younger, and eventually she dropped it, but the books still remained there. Like, I had a plethora of stuff to read if I wished to, but it just never worked for me. I don't know what it is. And I stopped reading at age 12. I read one more book. When was it? 14, 15? No, it was 16, 17. Yeah. I read one book then, but all in all in my life, I think I've read like 5 books in total, 5 full books. And there was this weight in my soul that I had to absolutely start reading because nobody would want to read my work. So I got on Wattpad, I got on Amazon and started getting books that sounded interesting to me to start to read. And let me tell you something, I found a couple of stuff to read in Wattpad, but a book, it's so hard for me to finish. I'm just not a reader. And you know what I realized? That at the end of the day, there's so many different ways for a writer to analyze stories. Like, you can analyze a film, you can analyze a video game, you can analyze a song, okay? Sure, it's not written like a book. I'm not saying that, because the way you write a script is not the same as writing a book. Completely different ways of writing. However, it does help you. It does help you understand how to analyze books. Plus, I had to analyze several books when I was at school. For Greek school, I had several Greek writers, several Greek authors and poets that we had to analyze at school. I had to deal with Odyssey and Iliad. I have to analyze that. And honestly, I'd never go back to that. It is awful. Like, I understand some of you love Odyssey and Iliad, but I had to suffer through analyzing this for a whole year. I don't want to see that book ever again in my life. I don't care about the movies either. And then when I was learning English, I had to analyze Shakespeare. I had to analyze a book of my choice, which I went with great expectations and I regret it. Because fun fact, out of all the books given to me, I chose that because it was the only one I was familiar with as a title. And I failed terribly on my essay on it. So picture this, I had to reread it from the beginning. And it had been a long time since I read it back then. I don't remember what it was. I think it was Christmas. And yeah, within 15 days, little lady had forgotten completely what that book was about. So I had to reread it from the beginning and try to understand it better. But truth be told, I was too young. And I believe that if I read it now and asked to analyze it, I would have been way better. But I started English at a young age, so by the time I was at higher levels, where people were expected to read serious literature and understand it, I was barely in junior high. I was like 11 years old. So I wasn't really good at understanding some things. But yeah, it was nightmare. I hate Great Expectations to this day, actually. But yeah, what I'm trying to say is that, yeah, you can analyze stories in many ways. And while I know that reading will definitely make your expression better as a writer, it doesn't guarantee it. I'm sorry, but think about it. How many authors that are actually avid readers have published books that are actually horrid? There are plenty of authors that have written bad books. It has nothing to do with your reading. Sometimes you have to write a bad book before you write a good one. It takes practice. So for me, what makes a good writer comes with practice, studying, and analyzing, regardless what kind of story you analyze, all right? The fact you read like 2 books a day means shit to me. Because like I said, there are examples of avid readers that have written horribly. So yeah, I still don't care about being a good writer. By the standards, I mean, of other writers. I'm looking to tell a story that matters to me. And if you are not fine with that, you're free to not read my work. If you're fine with giving it a try, I hope that you won't be disappointed. Let's put that out of the way and go back to the part of worldview. Like I said, there were plenty of things I wanted to see in one work, and this is why I started writing it, because there was a story I wanted to tell. And of course, this work features my worldview as a person. There are plenty of opinions of mine that are written in this. All my characters have something of me, because all writers do that. Like, you put parts of your personality in your characters, that's where you start, and then you develop them based on other things that are away from your personality. Like even in characters that have nothing to do with me. For example, when I'm writing men characters, I'm not a man, so I don't know what it's like being a man. I can imagine based on what I see around me, but I don't have the experience of being a man. So yeah, those characters definitely have parts of my personality, but they're still their own people with plenty of other things that have nothing to do with me. Another thing that was very important in my work was to be able to put my fears on paper. I have so many fears, it's crazy. Like I don't know how I'm surviving the day. And I wanted to express those fears through horror, through struggles of my characters, etc. And generally, the whole thing about my psychology, I wanted this to be on paper and questions I have and stuff like that. However, there comes a point where horror might be taken the wrong way. For example, there are messages in my work, but they're not for everyone. Like if you want to read my work in a chill way, like if you want to sit down and read my work leisurely, you absolutely can. What I'm trying to say is that if you're a person who likes to look deeper into things, there will be messages for you, but they won't be hiding in the darkness. The darkness is there for aesthetic, is there for me to burst, to express myself. It's not the message. For example, it's not like because my characters kill, what I'm trying to tell you is murder is alright. Please don't do that. What I'm trying to say is that these creatures, they're awful. Alright? If this is a villain story, everybody's bad. But still, they got each other. Still, they're accepted. So the message here is not that murder is alright, is that you can always find your people. You can be the worst person in the world and still you will find your people. There's no reason for you to feel alone. You just have to keep going. And unfortunately, yes, you will have to try because we all go through those idiots in our lives that just drain us and makes us think we have somebody. And eventually they walk away from your life or they hurt you first and then walk away from your life, or you have to cut them off yourself. But you have to keep the hope and understand that there are people out there for you, no matter how different you think you are. And this is what I try to portray through the worst case scenario. I'm talking again about characters that are horrible. They have killed, they have stolen, they have tortured, and they still found somebody that can be there for them no matter what. So this is very important. So yeah, those are plenty in my work. You will find lots of those. I just realized that I've been sitting in the corner even though this section has no pictures for me to show, so I tried to be slick and move while recording, but guess what? It crashed. Anyway, let's get back on track. I believe there's always been so much I felt I couldn't share with anyone, many things that tormented me and I wanted to say, and through this work, I get to talk about them all. Of course, this comes with a risk, and this is also me telling you that if you too have works like this, you should absolutely talk about them without fear. Because it's art, it's an expression. Sure, some people will take it the wrong way, but you're not there for them. You're there for people who think the same way as you and wish to read something that expresses those things that they want to say, those things that they feel and they never told anybody. So yeah, I wanted this to have it all. Things that I love, things that I hate, things that I fear, my beliefs, and at the same time have colorful characters with different personalities and styles, and all that jazz. So yeah, that's all I had to say. This has been a little introduction to my 13-year-old work. I hope you enjoyed it. Let's wrap things up though, shall we? It's over. No, but seriously, I needed to do that because it's not only talking about your work because you have to, it's also breaking the shyness away because I tend to be very shy and it's really taken a lot from my life. And here comes the part where I talk about the fear of being seen. There's a type of artist out there of any sort, whether you're a writer or a musician or a digital artist or a game developer, that are just shy, that are pledged with imposter syndrome, or just think that they shouldn't be seen, or that their work isn't enough to be seen. But that's also imposter syndrome. But yeah, any sort of way of being afraid to be seen. And you can see it even now, like I don't show my face for a reason. Like I prefer showing myself through a character I've created than my own self. And that is okay. However, just like I found a way to voice what I'm doing through a 3D character, you should do it too. If you have a work that you want people to see, you should absolutely find a way to show it to the world, whether that's through video, social media. You have to get out there and tell them about your story because somebody out there needs that story. Whether that story, again, is shown as a book, a song, it doesn't matter. If that story was put inside you. It was put inside you for a reason, and you have to share it with the world. And you can say, but lady, earlier you said that there are plenty of authors that have published horrid works. What if my work is one of those horrid works? Dude, look at me. What did I just say? I just told you that I'm not much of a reader. I should be ashamed to even call myself a writer according to some writers out there. Yet I choose to still write my story and share it with the world, regardless of what anybody thinks, regardless of whether I read a lot of books or not. Will my writing be amazing? No, it won't. But some people are going to like it, and even those books that I dislike, or other books that, like I said, are considered generally horrid, doesn't mean that they don't have fans. There are people out there that actually enjoy books that are not that good. They even call it their guilty pleasure. And honestly, I don't find that insulting. In fact, if somebody came to me and told me, lady, I read Demons of the Rose, and while it's not perfect, I consider it my guilty pleasure because I absolutely enjoyed the story, I would be on top of the world. Like, I'm not kidding. I don't care about perfection anymore. Okay, that's a lie. I do care when it comes to creating photo manipulation and stuff like that. Yeah, I'm still pledged by perfectionism. All right, even when I write, I overthink. Like, I can spend 2 hours on a single sentence. That's how bad it is. What I'm trying to say is that it still affects me in the moment. On a grand scale, it doesn't. Because in the moment, I feel the insecurity that, okay, you have to write this better, you have to do this better, blah, 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 blah. But when it's out, the ending result I want is not to be a bestseller. I don't care. If you're after bestseller, good for you. However, this puts too much pressure on you. I think that you could hit a bestseller way easier if you don't think about it. If you think that, oh, I'm gonna tell my story and whoever likes it, likes it. Own up to what you want to do. Say, this is my art, whether you like it or not. Be selfish. By God, be selfish. It's okay. Nobody's going to come out and tell you, oh, you're not allowed to be selfish in this stuff. It's your art. You're supposed to be your own fan. You're supposed to be passionate. So go out there and tell them you wrote the best story ever. It doesn't matter if they don't like it, because to you it's still the best story that's ever written, the best work you've ever drawn, the best song you've ever written. And maybe people think you're delusional. Let them be. Just because your taste doesn't fit mine doesn't mean that your taste is more valid than mine. There are plenty of people out there who will enjoy your work regardless. So look for the people that match your taste and stop caring about those that have a different taste, is what I'm trying to say. Anyway, thank you for watching. Thank you for your time. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please consider liking, subscribing, and hitting the notification bell. And stay true to yourself. Follow your dreams. Show your work. Stop hiding. See you next time.